Is this fine?
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right, we are here for the second artist talk. And it's Maryanne Malecki. All right, Maryanne, thank you.
Okay, hi. I'm going to start with something by a comment that was made by one of the people who's here, and that is, I would have never picked these out to be yours, and they're much smaller than everything that you've done. And the answer to all of those, or the response to all of those, is you're exactly right. These two pieces are collage. I had never worked in collage before. And in fact, they didn't even start out this way. It was a much larger piece. What I did was, as many people know Kathy Klompus, and I took a class with Kathy over at the Bottle Museum. She did a whole exhibit on, her whole show was a one-person show on collage. And so we were playing with things, and when Marty was talking, he was talking about the different changes that he has gone through his personal life in the last few years. And since the pandemic, I too had, a whole bunch of things. So what has happened is my palette has changed, my medium sometimes changes, my style has changed. And so I went from being very pale, or very almost like monochromatic, to during the pandemic, to using very primary colors, and then now I'm back to sort of a muted palette. These pieces are paper, magazine paper, done with acrylic gel medium. Is that what it is, Steve? And but I paint, and so I couldn't stop myself from adding paint. And one of the things that I've been intrigued by, I'm not sure if you're familiar with an artist by the name of Carrie James Marshall, but Carrie James Marshall is a African-American black artist from Chicago, and he throws interesting things into his paintings, and one of the things that he throws into them are stencils and stamping. And so some of this in here is even a stencil that I wound up interweaving with this. And I happen to like turquoise and orange a lot. And I like circles a lot. Don't ask me why. It just happens. So these two pieces were part of a larger piece that was probably, it was probably about 18 by 20 to start out with. And my thought was I was going to add something more to it, and I was going to make it larger and larger. And after 3 days of making it larger and larger and thinking about making it larger and larger, I threw a little cup mat down on the top of it and said, oh my God, it's better this way, this way, this way. So this large piece became several smaller pieces. And to me, it just worked. It just worked. And it was interesting to do something this small. Normally, the smallest I had ever worked in, 16 by 20. I think I did two pieces in 11 by 14. My most recent piece is 24 by 30, which is an oil painting. I like pattern, I like texture, I like color. And so, although I started out from working with still life and portraits, I began to realize that I was having more fun with the backgrounds, the abstracted backgrounds of what I was working with. So I would get done with the main subject. And then I would say, okay, now what can I really do to make the background sort of interesting? And I started doing, I did some collage on an oil painting that I did, but 2 oil paintings that I did. But these were the first 2 pieces that I've ever shown that have been totally collage. So this was the inaugural work. and I kind of like it. It kind of was fun. I'm not sure if I'll stay with collage because I like to get my paintbrush out and paint. But I think now, having done this and having listened to Marty and seeing his work too, I think I probably will add some collage into my painting as well. This, by the way, is acrylic painting. It's acrylic paint on this. Normally I paint in oil. And I use water-soluble oils. But again, this was such an anomaly, and so much so that I had friends who came in and said, "I can't find your work," and it's true. I have a couple of pieces at another show in Boston Spa, and the same exact thing that happened. It was like I can't see, I don't know where your work is, and here it is. Except for the piece that had my dog in the garden. Everybody saw my dog in the garden. So, any questions?
Yeah, I go to Kathy's print studio on Sundays, and we have been really fascinated with layering.
Yes.
And you were talking about doing this and then something on top of it, and I think these can go quite a far distance.
They can go further.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny because that's how it actually started. It was there are other pieces that, but then I decided sometimes, as we all know, anybody who does art knows that sometimes it's step away from the work because you've overworked it, you've overdone it. So this, I just wanted to leave it. I kind of like the way. This reminded me of a bottom of a you know, like an eddy in the ocean type of thing. If you're there, like those little tide pools or whatever. And this one was kind of like, it reminded me of peas that escaped. You know, they escaped from the pod. So there were a lot of iterations. I've got, actually from this one piece, I've got like 4 other pieces at home now. And one piece was very interesting because the frame around it had a little, I don't know, like a flaw or something. And then there was one of these lines in here that, in the collage. Now, are you familiar with the term kintsugi, if I'm pronouncing it correctly? You know what kintsugi is? Yeah, it's a Japanese term, which is if something is broken, you repair it with gold and the adhesive, and it makes it more valuable because it's been tested by time. So the piece that I have, it started out with this, and then it comes over here and it goes into this, and the name of it is Wall Street because it sort of goes downhill. But yeah, it is fun though. So you're right. It is the idea of the layering would be kind of interesting. I'd really have to get back to Kathy's things. Yes. Yeah. So any other questions, Maryanne?
I always wonder whether it's bittersweet when you sell a piece, knowing you're not going to see it again, probably.
You know, it's interesting. My brother loves these pieces, and he also loved the piece that did sell up in Boston Spa. And he said, "I'm sorry, that was a good one." But yeah, you take a photograph of it. Sometimes I do make prints of things, giclées. Particularly of the oils. If somebody, I did that whole series of the black and white cat with the very primary, a lot of abstraction, a lot of color, and I've made giclées of that, and several people wanted them, and so that So sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like you're gonna die. Who's gonna want all this stuff in this house? Get it out of here. So sometimes it becomes a matter of pragmatism, but everybody's here is shaking and they're nodding their heads saying, "Oh yeah." Steve, yeah, so this is true. And also, when you first start, and again, I think other people, I am not a fine arts person. I was a history teacher and an English teacher and a writing teacher. And and did a lot of other things, and I have a checkered past as far as the career goes. But when you first start, when I first started, you always think, oh my God, I'll never do anything like this again. I'll never do anything this good again. And sometimes you wake up and say, who created this? I have no idea how this happened, because that does, because things take over and they become their own thing. And now I'm not so worried about that anymore, because it's kind of like, well, even if it's not the old thing, it's something new. And there's this kind of mantra that my brother and I share a lot, and we talk a lot, because it's like, there are no rules. So whatever you try to do it, try it. There's nobody saying that it's that Catholic school, Catholic
Yes,
upbringing.
yeah.
There's no rules, and you can just play. And Brian Eno did did anybody hear the interview with Brian Eno that he did for the New Yorker last week or so? And he was quoting somebody, and he said, children learn from play, and adults, I'm really badly paraphrasing this, but adults do art to learn how to play. And the more I thought about that, I was like, wow, that is really true. And that's where there are no rules come into play here, because as long as there's the rules, it's rigid. And you watch somebody like Basquiat, or somebody like Alice Neal, or Kerry James Marshall, or Nick Cave, and there's no rules. There's no rules. So anyway,
Thank you, Maryanne.
thank you.